Welcome back. This is Arise News. You're watching the morning show with me, Biola Alabi. Here's the last part of my interview with my guest, Dr. Saheed Aderinto, Professor of African History at Western Carolina University. Dr. Ademide Adelusi Adeluyi, a Professor of African History at the University of California, Riverside, and Dr. Abosede George, a Professor of African History at Barnard College and Columbia University. Let's take a final look.
You're studying Lagos, but you're also, as historians, you're linking us with the past and the present. And to take a subject like prostitution and the criminalization of prostitution, and also if you take a look at, as a historian, you're taking a look at Lagos, you're taking a look at how people approach to sex exchange. I'm sure there must be some interesting linkages with the more we become religious as a nation. How do you think that has affected the way we process and perceive sex and the way we criminalize and talk about sex?
No two generation has the same perspective about illicit sexuality. But what is interesting is that certain elements have remained very dominant. The element of morality, the element of religion. And these two elements, coupled with medical factors, political factors, always shape the ways in which individuals and groups articulate their position on illicit sexuality. So, for example, during the colonial period, when prostitution was criminalized from the 40s, it was because the government was making it difficult, or let's say a problematic connection between illicit sexuality and the medical condition of the army during the Second World War. And of course, military prostitution is everywhere in the world, but Nigeria was Lagos was personalizing it, the strategic location of Lagos to the win the war effort, and why Lagos must not be bombarded, and why the soldiers must not be sick. Now today we are looking at it from a much more different perspective. Of course, some people then had more moral argument, but it's easy to allow moral and religious factors to absorb the energies of other factors. And so
I like that, absorb the energy of other factors.
So even though we know that the government was thinking about military implication, it's easy to articulate the moral factor. But when you look at the elite women's perspective, it's not security, it's not the military. It's about what would happen to our girls when they become adults. Why are we creating institutions that's exploiting our girls and not allowing them to develop as responsible adults? And the men have their own perspective about a society where we can reduce prostitution by just having men and women. We can just get married to 10 and that's right. And so you have all these complicated narratives.
One of the things that you talk about is the girl child and obviously the girl hawker. And if you look at some of the challenges that we have today, if you look at the streets, if you look at girls with girl carrying girls and begging on the street, what do you think is sort of when you look at Lagos and the complex and the complications of Lagos, what do you think is one of the things the girl child has to weave through to be successful and to be strong and to flourish in a place like Lagos?
That's a very great question, interesting question. And it's interesting because in a way, girls and the girl child are distinct from other populations in the society. But in many ways, we're all the same, right? And in some ways, the things that girls have to deal with in Lagos in order to thrive, to be successful, in order to live simply sometimes, depending on your social class, are the same things that all the other people around them are dealing with, right? So our keynote speaker this year, Mr. Ainde, gave a really excellent talk on a new way, maybe new to us, of thinking about urban planning and city planning. And this is planning based on centering the figure of the citizen, maybe your most vulnerable citizen, right? And assigning the value of the entire city to this individual, right? So if you start with a high value individual citizen, then all of your planning decisions follow from there. All of your planning decisions go into maintaining the high value of this individual citizen. What kind of road should we have to make sure that this citizen does not suffer a road accident? What kind of hospitals should we have to make sure that if they cut their finger, they can get, you know, etc. Everything follows from there. If you start with the idea that each individual citizen is as valuable as your own mother, as your own, whatever is the most valuable person you can imagine, as valuable as your own president, right? And so he was trying to switch out, he was trying to get us to imagine a different grounding, a different kind of basis for urban planning, right? Starting with the individual citizen. I think the girl child as that imagined citizen would completely transform Lagos, right? What do girls need in Lagos? What do children need in Lagos? What do children who are girls need in Lagos? From any social class, the highest, the lowest, and taking that as our starting point. What do they need in terms of security? What do they need in terms of health? What do they need in terms of education? What do they need in terms of opportunity? What do they need in terms of freedom to be creative, right? So I think that those are some of the questions that we should, I think when we start with that kind of subject, that kind of citizen, we really can imagine a city that will be liberating and productive and enlivening for all. In my work, you know, especially in my work, one of the things I'm very interested in is in the ironies or the paradoxes of the ways in which we try to help girls. And a lot of this, I've been thinking about in the project that I did on the 1940s. There was an idea of good girls that can be helped, or what a good girl should be. And then there are ideas of other girls that either should be expelled from the city because they don't belong here, or they just kind of don't qualify for a certain level of sympathy and advocacy. And that, I think, is a very interesting issue because...
And this was in the 1940s?
This was in the 40s going into the 50s, right? So there's the idea, the problem with the girl hawker was that initially that these girls are coming into Lagos and they're not from here. They're clogging our streets, things they're selling are dirty, you know, the things they're selling are dirty, therefore by implication there's a whole discourse about them. The solution should be to ban hawking. We see banning signs all over Lagos. Ban hawking, and then also repatriate them to wherever they came from. So that seemed perhaps like a progressive solution at the time. Whoever was, for those who were proposing these solutions. The idea that you would return home, you would be restored to your home, and that would be better than working in the city. Or that you would be cleared from the streets, not going around hawking, and that would be better than working in the streets, right? So the question then is, you know, what is the home that you're being restored to, and why did you leave in the first place, right? Sure. Is the city a space of opportunity for you actually that you're now being denied? Or when you're cleared from the streets, where are you cleared to? So some girls were sent to the juvenile court, they were sent to the girls' home, right? And the goal was to kind of get them out of public space. Wow. And this is...
I'm going to jump in here because we're actually going to wrap up soon, but okay. I did want to switch gears a little bit. So I do want people to go and check out your book and make sure they go to your site because there's lots of stuff there. But as we switch gears a little bit and wrap up here, I wanted to ask you guys, because you're studying Lagos, you're talking about the past, and obviously the present, and how that helps us.
This brings us to the end of the morning show today. I'm Biola Alabi. Thanks to my guests for joining me, and to you at home for watching. Goodbye.